God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground." Now Moses had been a man seeking after God. God had spoken to Moses, and now Moses responded by faith. Before moving on in his faith, Moses needed to allow God to change him. The burning bush is symbolic of a deeper work of God's grace. This is what God desires to do in each one of us. God says to Moses, "Moses, you can't come any farther. The ground you're on is holy ground. There's got to be a further work in your life. You're not coming any farther." Something else must be done in Moses' life, and something else must be done in each one of our lives as well. He's not going to come and destroy you. He's speaking to you and he's saying, "You can't come any farther until you allow me to change you." So the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" He said, "A rod." And he said, "Cast it on the ground." So he cast it on the ground and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Reach out your hand and take it by the tail." So he reached and he caught it by the tail, and it became a rod in his hand. God asked Moses to throw down what he was familiar with. That rod, that staff, had been with him a long time. But it reminded him of the past. It was something he trusted in from the past. It needed to go. Because God was going to do something new. He would change what he was familiar with. He was going to change it into something much, much more than what he had before. It was something completely different. Think of the serpent in your life. God's going to change that thing you're fighting with if you'll only lay it down. And he's going to give you back something that you're familiar with, something that you can now have confidence in. When God called to Moses, Moses had to stop and look. He had to stop. You got to stop doing the things that are occupying your time and spend the time with God. This is what we see in Moses. He had to turn away from the busyness of the life. He had to let those sheep go for a bit so that he could look at God. Are you spending time with God? Ample time? And are you only giving God the time that you have left over? Or are you really spending time with God? That's when he's going to speak to you. We see in Moses, God was preparing him. And as Moses was being prepared, he was spending more time with God. God appeared to Moses and God changed Moses. But the question is, what about you? Where do you stand today? Are you standing on holy ground? Is God speaking to your heart about a further work that he wants to do in you and you've been postponing it? What's your answer to God in the burning bush? Is it going to be, "Here I am"?